and I do astrophotography from my backyard, pretty light polluted. So, and this is Philip, and we kind of know each other from a Facebook group. It's Astrophotography Club Ireland, and there's a good few of us on it, so if you feel like joining, do. So this is a very basic introduction to astrophotography. So I don't know, is anyone doing astrophotography at the moment? I've spoken to a few of you. Oh, very good. And astronomy. Yeah. Most people here are kind of with the Cork Astronomy Club. So one thing about astrophotography, you don't really need an astronomy background to get into it. I suppose there's a lot of astrophotographers I know that didn't actually enjoy or do astronomy as a kid. I did. I love astronomy, and that's kind of I think it's common neo-ways that got me into this. Back a few years ago when it appeared, I went out with my DSLR and took pictures and was hooked. Didn't realise I could do it. Got a T-piece attached to my DSLR and took pictures of the moon. And I thought, oh my god, okay, and that just exploded then after that. So some of the presentation might go a little bit too technical, and if it's going too long, I'll cut it. So that we maybe have a look at the rigs, the different rigs, and we can ask questions, okay? And I'll try to get through this. That white one there is mine, and Philip has 3 other ones that are much more portable and affordable, I suppose, and kind of quick shoot ones where you can just grab and go, whereas mine is kind of more stay put. Some people go out with their heavy rigs, I don't. So this. Fix me came up with anyway. These are a couple of examples of our images. These are mine. One on the left is the California Nebula. The one on the right is N106 and a few others, I don't know what they're called. Just an example, that's the Horsehead Nebula there. You probably are familiar with that. And the one on the right is a much more faint nebula. That's about 50 hours of exposure. That's called the Battle of the Squid. These are Philips. This is called the Spaghetti Nebula. One thing that I kind of try and tell people is, well, you don't need a massive telescope or lens, to image the night sky, because nebulas in general are quite huge in the sky. So, like the sky is kind of divided up into degrees, as you probably all know. The moon is about half a degree. That nebula there on the left is about 3 degrees. It's huge, so it's 6 times bigger than the moon in the sky. It's just your eyes don't see it because they're very faint photons coming out there. So the one on the right is the Wizard Nebula next to, that's Rigel, is it?
The Witch Head.
Or sorry, what should I say? The Witch Head Nebula, but that's Rigel, the star.
Rigel.
Yeah. From Orion. You're probably familiar with Orion. So all these things are sitting around up in the sky, you can't see them. And then that's one of Philip's Milky Way images. So, as you know, in summertime, the Milky Way arch comes right overhead in the night sky, and it's just teeming with nebulas and lots of interesting things to photograph. So that's a very wide field view there of that. So, I suppose when it comes to astrophotography, there's 3 main types of astrophotography. You're not totally pocketed into one, and you can't just do one and not do the other. But in general, there are the 3 main types, and you kind of need a different setup for the 3 different types. You can mix and match a small bit, but they would be the 3 main types. So you have planetary, where you're looking at the moon and the planets; deep space, which is for nebulas, galaxies, clusters, star fields; and then landscape, which would be your Milky Way and a bit of that in picture. So for the 3 types of astrophotography, there's kind of 3 kind of setups for each one. For planetary, generally you would have a kind of long focal range telescope, so something like around 16 to 2000 millimeter focal range. Don't be fooled by the size of that. There are some telescopes that they reflect inside. Probably telling you stuff you already know, right? But anyway, so long focal range and a slow telescope. What I mean by that is that so the aperture, the width of your telescope, the wider it is, the more light it will collect you divide your focal length by your aperture, you'll get this F ratio, which goes from 1 point something 8 to 12 or something like that, right? So a slow telescope would be kind of F8 upwards. Most of these planetary ones would be around F10, F11. And it just means that it's slowing down the amount of light that's going with your telescope, because the planets and the moon are super bright, right? So you don't want your sensor being flooded with light from your planets. So you want to take a slow telescope with a lot of focal range for your planets. And then for deep space, then you can really have a very wide range of telescopes. You can have a lens in your camera, 25, 50 mil, doesn't matter, all the way up to infinite, like the largest telescopes. It just depends how far you want to reach in space. As I said, a lot of the nebulas are huge, and so quite often a lot of people have quite wide field telescopes. That's my one there. So it's only got a focal length of 430 and width of for aperture 73. So it's quite wide field, Philip here has the Red Cat 51 and a couple of lenses, and you can just take amazing pictures with these smaller rigs as well. Okay, you don't need huge fancy setup. So in general, for deep space then aperture is important. You want a kind of fast telescope, right? Because you're collecting photons from outer space that are very faint and very few. So you need something that's the ratio of the aperture to the focal range is wide, so that you can collect as many photons as you can. And then typically you need a tracker or an equatorial mount. So you'll see Philip, even with his white field there, he has a tracker on each one, and mine there is an equatorial mount. And I will explain the difference between them in a minute. And then landscape you generally use with your normal DSLR camera and a wide field lens. Sometimes with a tracker, and you can get away with it without a tracker. So I will be speaking mostly to deep space because that's what I do. But Philip would dabble in landscape and very wide field as well. So he's a good person to ask questions afterwards if you have any. So the minimum requirement for astrophotography really is, and this is a very minimum requirement, you can see there's kind of all different lines hanging off each of the rigs, so you kind of end up adding things as you're going along, but you need a tracking system or a mount, your telescope and a camera. As I said, I started out with my DSLR like that on the right, I put a T-piece on and I stuck it into an old telescope I had, and I got some great images of the moon. It was brilliant. So different types of mounts. We have star trackers, of which there's 3 in the room here. Great for landscape and very wide field astrophotography. Okay? So some of the shots that you saw from Philip. Pros, very portable and very affordable. Cons, you have a weight limit. Okay, so you're kind of stuck to wide field. You won't be getting galaxies and things like that unless you're looking at a drop out. Was huge. So I'll just skip over to the alt-azimuth mount for a minute. Quite often used for planetary. An alt-azimuth goes up, down, left and right. So it can track the moon it can track the moon and the planets. But what it doesn't account for is field rotation. And what I mean by that is, when the moon is rising on one horizon, it's kind of on its side, comes up to the zenith, and it's standing up and it's going down. So that's your moon, that's your field rotation, right? So an alt-azimuth won't track that, okay? But your equatorial mount will. So it'll keep your frame the same the whole time, so it's tracking that field rotation. And then we have the German equatorial mount, which I just going to explain a bit about. Used for deep space, wide field and more deep space as well. The pros, again, you can take more weight, you can put bigger telescopes on it. Usually they have go-to, so you don't have to go find your target, you just say go here and off it goes. when you're done. There's no star popping, which you're probably used to doing. And then the cons, very heavy, and there's a price tag like usually. So, interrupt me if you have any questions. So, just a typical workflow for astrophotography. So usually I would take the mount out and level it. I level it because if you think about astrophotography, you're opening your shutter, and I will talk about this more in a minute. You're opening the shutter for a long time, and you want those stars in the exact same position the whole time as you gather those photons. So if it's level, you're helping make sure that there's nothing affecting the scope and the tracking of the stars. So usually, you have your level here. Most of these mounts come with the level on the side, and you can use that, and you just raise your legs as you want. Or what I do, because this comes off here, typically you should level on top of the mount. I just have this lined up with the mount, and I'll level against each leg and make sure it's level. After that, then you want to balance your telescope. Again, this is quite important because if it's heavy on one side, you're going to put strain on the gears inside your mount. So the less things that are working against you, the better your images are going to be. So in your equatorial mount, then, it will be leveling on both sides. So you just want to make sure you've got there isn't one side that's heavier. So you put this up or down. Like if you put that down like there. See, that's not balanced, okay? So you want to have it nicely balanced so you're not putting any strain on your gears. And then again, in your declination, you want this nicely balanced. Okay, so there's no strain. The next step then is polar aligning. This is the most important step of your whole setup. And I'm going to skip it for now because I will slide on it next because it's that important, right? So polar aligning is basically getting your mount aligned with the North Star. And I'll explain about that in a minute. And you would do that with your equatorial mounts and your star trackers. You wouldn't typically do it with your alpha mounts. So